Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Thank you guys so much for joining and helping me get closer to 500. Now, I saw something last year. Let me give you guys a backstory of what I'm about to do. I saw a thumbnail last year, and it gave me an idea that I should have acted on, but I didn't. But I saw a thumbnail last year that I did not watch the video because I didn't want to feel like I was taking something from someone else. Because you can't build your house by taking from someone else's. That's a good recipe for karma to come and get you. However, I saw this thumbnail and it said what would happen if if all the WrestleManias were 2 nights. And it gave me an idea, but I didn't act on it then, but I'm acting on it now. I thought to myself, why not give my own thoughts about what happened? And I didn't see the video for obviously I didn't want to take anything from anyone. But it gave me an idea to give my own opinion of what would happen if WWE made all the WrestleManias 2-night events. Whereas we see now since 2020, WWE has been 2 nights instead of one Sunday, although now all the events happen on Saturday for whatever reason. But I thought to myself, let me give my thoughts. But this channel here, I want to give my opinion, but I'm going to start in my lifetime, which is from 1994 until now, or at least WrestleMania 35, because that's the last single day. Now, let's get started with what would happen if WWE were 2 nights, starting from WrestleMania 10 to WrestleMania 35. Let's get started. At WrestleMania 10, we have WrestleMania Saturday being Scott Hall, God rest his soul, versus Shawn Michaels in the legendary ladder match. Also, because of all the things that happened, and some of them were performing double duty, Yokozuna could have faced Lex Luger for the WWE Championship on Saturday, and Bret Hart would face Owen. The next night, Owen and Yokozuna can focus on the main event and get some rest overnight, being that Bret versus Yokozuna is main event Sunday. Next year, WrestleMania 11, 1995, Hartford, Connecticut, we have Diesel versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania Saturday, main event for the WWE Championship, or WWF Championship at the time. Main event of Sunday, Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow. WrestleMania 12, Anaheim, California, 1996. Main event of Saturday, The Undertaker versus Diesel. Main event of Sunday, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, Iron Man match. WrestleMania 13, Chicago, Illinois. Main event Saturday, Stone Cold versus Bret Hart. Main event Sunday, Sid Vicious versus The Undertaker. God rest the soul of Psycho Sid. By the way, fun fact, I'm wearing a WrestleMania t-shirt because it's WrestleMania season. And this is a classic because you can see classic legends from Macho Man, Jake the Snake, Hogan, Iron Sheik. Everyone likes Iron Sheik more. For God rest his soul, Ultimate Warrior, God rest his soul, and Piper, and Mr. DiBiase. Of course, the WrestleMania main event of WrestleMania 14, Saturday, Kane versus The Undertaker. WrestleMania Sunday, Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. However, when it comes to WrestleMania 15, I can't come up with anything, honestly, for WrestleMania Saturday. So you guys are going to have to give me your input on that because I can't think of any good matches that happened that would have been worthy of the Saturday version. However, we all know that WrestleMania Sunday is Stone Cold versus The Rock. That was actually a really good one. Let's go to the new millennium. WrestleMania 2000, Anaheim, California. Main event Saturday, the triple threat triangle ladder match between the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, and Edge and Christian. That's the main event of Saturday. Whereas the main event of Sunday is the Fatal 4-Way match, McMahon in each corner. Big Show with Shane, Linda with Mick Foley, Triple H, WWE Champion with Stephanie McMahon, whom we all like today, and the final boss and the former boss, The Rock, accompanied by Vince McMahon. Of course, Vince McMahon, ironically, is the devil on and off screen, and now The Rock has become the final devil of on screen. Of course, Triple H won that one. WrestleMania 17 from Houston, Texas, 2001. The main event of Saturday, I had to do some thinking. We had a couple of good matches that night. Benoit versus Angle, the triple threat ladder match, TLC between the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. But of course, I have to say, the main event would have to be Triple H versus The Undertaker, whereas the main event of Sunday would have to be Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock Part 2. And it's very fitting because a Texan wins on Saturday and a Texan wins on Sunday. It's fair. WrestleMania 18, Toronto, Canada, 2002. Main event of WrestleMania Saturday, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, but the main event of Sunday, Triple H versus Chris Jericho. WrestleMania 19, I had to do some thinking on this one. Seattle, Washington, 2003. By the way, I would love to see WWE go to Seattle. I think Lumen Field is a great stadium to host WrestleMania. Or SummerSlam. However, for WrestleMania, the main event, after doing some thinking, Shawn Michaels versus Jericho was good. But I have to say the main event, it was great by the way, has to be Stone Cold versus The Rock, Part 3, the final chapter, WrestleMania Saturday. Whereas WrestleMania Sunday would have to be Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. WrestleMania 20, New York City. Main event of WrestleMania Saturday, I did some thinking. For a second, I said Eddie versus Kurt Angle should be the main event. But after doing some thinking, I thought to myself, the main event of WrestleMania 20 is Kane and The Undertaker. Why? Because it is built as a rematch 6 years in the making, and Kane had buried his brother, thinking he would never return. Therefore, it's fitting that the returning Undertaker would be the main event of the very show he is undefeated at. And speaking of The Undertaker, WrestleMania 21, Hollywood, California, 2005. The main event is also The Undertaker versus Randy Orton. As great as Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels was, The Undertaker versus Randy Orton was also a great match. But the reason I put this to be the main event is because this is built, the build-up, and what is on the line. Randy Orton being the legend killer, The Undertaker being the legend. Randy Orton wanted to be the first to pin The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Undertaker being undefeated, and we are recognizing that The Undertaker is undefeated. So, I think that match should be WrestleMania Saturday, whereas, obviously, WrestleMania Sunday is Triple H versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship. Next at WrestleMania 22, the main event being Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle versus Randy Orton. Why? Because even though Edge versus Mick Foley was the best match, was everyone's favorite that night, the build-up and the meaning behind that triple threat match would make it fitting that the SmackDown main event should be on Saturday, and Raw's main event, obviously Triple H versus Cena, be on the WWE Championship Sunday. Same can be said about WrestleMania 23 Detroit 2007. The main event of Saturday, The Undertaker versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship. Championship versus streak. Whereas WrestleMania Sunday will be Shawn Michaels versus Cena for the WWE Championship. WrestleMania 24, Orlando, Florida, 2008. The main event is We're Going Home Sad. Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels. Career on the line. Career-threatening match. WrestleMania Sunday, we go home happy because The Undertaker wins the World Heavyweight Championship from Edge in the Sunday main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. Next year, WrestleMania 25. We already know what the main event of WrestleMania Saturday is going to be. The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels for the Undertaker's undefeated streak. WrestleMania Sunday is Triple H versus Randy Orton. WWE Championship. However, next year, WrestleMania 26, Glendale, Arizona. Main event of Saturday is Batista versus John Cena for the WWE Championship. Obviously, the main event of Sunday is The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. The Undertaker is on Sundays. The second Sunday for The Undertaker. Next, we go to WrestleMania 27. My former hometown of Atlanta. The main event of Saturday, Triple H versus The Undertaker, no holds barred, obviously. The main event of Sunday is The Miz versus John Cena with The Rock as the wild card. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. The only reason, if I could cut a promo against heel Miz and even heel Cena, I would say that the only reason those two were the main event was because The Rock was the wild card, because the best part of that night was Triple H versus The Undertaker. Speaking of Triple H versus The Undertaker, we go to the next year, Miami, Florida, WrestleMania 28. The main event of WrestleMania Saturday is The Undertaker versus Triple H, Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. The main event of Sunday is The Rock versus John Cena. Next year, WrestleMania 29, The Undertaker is again the main event of WrestleMania Saturday in East Rutherford, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium. The Undertaker versus CM Punk, which was the best night of that night anyway. Triple H versus Brock was good. The Rock versus Cena was good. Not as good as the previous year, but it was still pretty good. But Saturday, Undertaker versus CM Punk to defend the Undertaker streak and the honor of Paul Bearer, God rest his soul. WrestleMania Sunday, once again, The Rock versus John Cena. John Cena's redemption match. WrestleMania 30, New Orleans, where WWE will be next year. We have in the main event, Triple H versus Bryan Danielson. Winner goes to Sunday night's main event to face off against Batista and Randy Orton in the triple threat match for the Undisputed Championship. WrestleMania 31. I had to think about this a little bit because Triple H versus Sting was a good match to me. But after doing some thinking, I have to say WrestleMania Saturday has to be Bray Wyatt, God rest his soul, gone too soon, versus The Undertaker. Undertaker's redemption match. And I'm going to tell you why I think this would make a great main event for Saturday. First of all, because California is on different time zones from East Coast Georgia or something like that, or MetLife Stadium for that matter, they start at 4. It's 4 o'clock when they start. It's 7 on the East Coast, which means it's still near daylight near the end of the show. And The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt both have entrances that require the lights being out. So by the time we get to the near end of the show, they're the main event. We can actually have some dim lights and their entrances will be more interesting. That's one thing. Of course, the match built as The Undertaker's redemption, that's perfect. That's a more perfect fitting to end the night. Of course, WrestleMania Sunday is Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship, with Seth Rollins cashing in. WrestleMania Saturday, WrestleMania 32, Dallas, Texas. Record-setting crowd. The main event of WrestleMania Saturday is The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon, Hell in a Cell. Main event of WrestleMania Sunday is the original main event. Roman Reigns versus Triple H for the WWE Championship. And I heard that it was actually meant to be a triple threat match between all members of the Shield before Seth Rollins got hurt. WrestleMania 33, Orlando, Florida. The main event of WrestleMania Saturday is Triple H versus Seth Rollins. Main event of WrestleMania Sunday, Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker. The passing of the torch between two guys from the Attitude Era to the future and the Shield members. Two guys being members of the Shield, by the way. WrestleMania 34, New Orleans. Again, the main event of WrestleMania Sunday is Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. The main event of WrestleMania Sunday, The Undertaker versus John Cena as the return of The Undertaker. If they made this match more epic, because the main event of Roman versus Brock was not everyone's favorite, I think it would be better if those two had a more iconic match. Undertaker and Cena, I'm speaking of. That's just my take on it. Last and finally, we have WrestleMania 35. And the main event of WrestleMania Saturday is Bryan Danielson versus Kofi Kingston. Kofi Mania ends on a good note. That would have been historic. WrestleMania Sunday, the triple threat match between the women, Rousey, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch, who became the undisputed women's champion. So, let me know what you think about this, the WrestleMania Saturdays and Sundays. Let me know if you agree with this. If you disagree, tell me how you would book Saturdays and all. Until next time, I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and that's all the time I have for you today, and I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling. See you later.